Hey, what's up, guys? Okay, sorry, let's get this thing situated a little bit here. There we go. All right, here we are, 6 o'clock on the dot. I said I was gonna go live. This time I tried to promote it on different websites and stuff so you guys could tune in. I got some stuff I want to talk about. I'm really excited to go over this stuff. I've been working on this idea, man, for like a year. What's going on, Carlo? We'll let a couple people tune in real quick and then we're gonna get started. Basically, what I'm gonna be going over here, a lot of guys on my team kind of know the rough outlook, or not the rough outlook, the outline, I guess, of these ideas, these concepts. Some of this stuff is gonna be common sense for people, and some of the other stuff is gonna be new for some newer guys. But basically what I'm gonna be going over is I wanna make it really simple for newer guys or people that are adjusting to arm wrestling, or even if you've been in it for a while, to simplify your training and what you should be focusing on. This is all my opinion. I'm sure some people are going to disagree with this stuff. So what I did was I broke down. I was thinking to myself for a while, what categories are there that go towards applied strength on arm wrestling table, right? So what things can you, when you're trying to apply pressure into someone's hand on an arm wrestling table, what factors are there that contribute to how much pressure you can apply? Like, is it just how much muscle you have on your body, right? Is it, I start breaking down the categories in my head, like what are all the categories that help you apply more pressure on a table? And so I spent about, I don't know, a year slowly in my head breaking down this list. And then finally today, and over the last couple of days, I actually started writing it down, putting pen to paper, and really just thinking about it a lot. So today I spent a lot of my time, I hit up Todd Zilla, I hit up Rob Vigent, and I hit up Devin Larrett. And I wish I would have hit up Ingen as well. I didn't have time because I already committed to this live to bounce the ideas off them. But so far I got good responses from them, from those three guys who I look up to a lot, very smart arm wrestlers who know a lot. And they gave me a little bit of their input, but in general, they liked the list. Right? They agreed with the stuff I have written down. They each added like one little thing, but besides that, they pretty much agreed with a lot of the list. Now, when I go over these categories with you guys, it's gonna be the categories are like interchangeable. And this is something that especially Rob Vigent wanted me to mention, and he brought up a lot. Before I get into this, guys, can you guys share this stuff, please, on Facebook or wherever? Can you guys share the live stream? I'd appreciate it. Get more people coming in before I get too deep into it, in case anybody has questions or things they want to say. I'd appreciate it a lot if you guys could share it on whatever. Okay, so these categories, and there's 7 of them, depending on the person and the individual, it will depend on which one is more important to you, right? If I was a 5-foot, 120-pound arm wrestler who just started, then the level of importance of these categories might be different for me, right? So depending on who you are and where you're at in your career, these might have different priorities for you, right? So I put them, I'm not even going to read them in specific order. I mean, I guess the order I'll read them in is more of an order for me, where I'm at in the sport and stuff like that, but it might be different for a lot of people. So keep that in mind when I'm going over these categories about what might be the biggest thing for you to focus on. I just want you guys to have a nice recipe when you're thinking, man, I want to get stronger at arm wrestling. What should I focus on? And then you can look at these 7 categories and be like, okay, which one am I lacking at out of these 7, and which ones can I focus on and improve? And hopefully we're all improving all 7 of them all the time. Okay, so here we go. Starting at number 7 for me, we're gonna start with energy, right? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over these. I don't want to say briefly, but I'm gonna cover all 7 of these things, and then over the next week or 2 or 3, I'm gonna make videos on each one independently, going over how to work on these as a category itself, and how to train it and how to get moving on it a little bit better. So I'm not gonna like just run over them, but I'm gonna go over them briefly in each category, right? Sorry if this is taking so long for me to explain to you guys. I just want to get all this out of the way before I get into it. Oh my God, look at this big old zit I have. Oh. All right, guys, so number 7 is energy, right? So when I'm talking about energy on an arm wrestling table, we're talking about like your CNS, your central nervous system. We're talking about your glucose levels. We're talking about your amount of focus you have, how rested you are, your levels of aggression. So these are things that basically like some of them are physical, like rest and diet and things like that, but a lot of it is mental. Tapping into your adrenaline and things like that on an arm wrestling table is big, right? So I think that these are things that you can work on that as far as just focusing and being able to harness the beast within when you go to a tournament. One of the biggest things I ever noticed when I went to a tournament was the events I went to where I was focused. I had headphones in. I was laser focused on the event and the match ahead of me. I was able to take my energy drinks and things like that. And when I went up there and I was really focused and aggressive, I felt a sizable difference in power that I'm able to apply on the table, right? If my head was not in it, then I've had matches where I feel like I gave it 50%, right? So this is more of a mental, these are more mental things that you can do on an arm wrestling table to apply more pressure. But in general, I think energy is definitely an important category within any kind of arm wrestling match and how to apply more pressure, right? So always consider these things like your CNS is your central nervous system and how you can, if you guys look into that and how you train your CNS, you can tax that. And if you like, so that's why they say don't do any heavy lifts leading up like within like a week of your arm wrestling event because you can destroy a lot of your central nervous system. So have you ever like done something where your adrenaline got way up, like you got in a car accident or something where you seized up and you applied all your pressure and then your body just feels like you got in a train wreck. It feels like you wrestled a bear, right? That's your CNS and everything got taxed all the way and you just can't apply anything. Everything just feels beat up and your energy feels really low. That's your central nervous system. That's your energy, right? So you have to always monitor that and realize where you're at, where that's at when you're going into an event. And if you have that, if you've taxed it too much or you haven't trained it or it's destroyed, that can really affect the amount of pressure you can apply on the table. Then like glucose and your carbs, just your general diet can be a big one. A lot of us sloppy super heavyweights like myself, or people that have horrible diets, I mean that can really affect you into an event. Going there if you didn't have enough carbs, you have no energy, things like that. Talking about focus, I like to put my headphones in, like I said, and I picture some really crazy stuff in my head, that stuff that makes me get angry. By the time I go up on the table, if everything's where it should be in my head, I'm really aggressive. I got some things going on in my head that I don't even want to say out loud because it'll make me seem like a dick. But I'm definitely thinking some crazy stuff. And then rest. That's big, guys. I mean, sleeping and stuff the day before an event, or even if it's practice, making sure you're well rested. I've had practices I've gone into where I had 2 hours of sleep and I couldn't even touch guys that I hold and toy with every day. Like those are big things that have to do with actual force applied on an arm wrestling table. These can like directly affect how much pressure you apply into someone's hand, right? So 7, that's number 7, energy. And moving forward, number 6, this is muscle synergy. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about muscle memory and like muscle coordination. Now this is a big one I've been talking with Ingen Terzi about, and he kind of opened my eyes to this a lot, is if I'm able to use 6 muscles in a move and you're only using 3 muscles, even if your 3 muscles are bigger than mine, odds are my 6 muscles can do well against yours, right? Knowing how to use all the muscles at once in a move can be a huge player. So right now, a lot of my training is I build the muscles throughout the week at the gym, and then I go into practice and I focus on putting all my muscles together and using them in unison. Thanks, Tyler. What happens is you take I spend time building my chest, my shoulder, different parts of my shoulder, my bicep, and my forearm, right? Then that can lead to a lot of side pressure if used correctly. So, but if I go onto a match and I'm not tightening up my traps, I didn't utilize my chest or focus on it, I didn't engage my shoulder the way I wanted to, then what's the point of having all those muscles trained up if I'm not going to use them in unison in order to apply pressure, right? So that's something you have to train. So when I say muscle memory, these are not things that you should be consciously thinking about in a match all the time, because that can take away from your levels of aggression and things like that. But it's hammered in there through practice, through repetition, right? Through compound movements on the table and practice. So just going through, you're working on your hook, you want your hook to get better and you want to get used to utilizing all the proper muscles. Then at practice, you should be doing reps in your hook. Whatever your hook is, you should be going through it with a high amount of resistance and just working on that move until you get it dialed in. So you're utilizing all the muscles properly, right? If you sometimes I'll watch guys at practice and they'll be leaving their elbow way out and they're not using their lats, for instance, then that's a big muscle that they're leaving out of this, chain of muscles they're supposed to be using. So I would say that their muscle coordination, their muscle memory, their muscle synergy is off. Right? They're not using everything they could be using to apply force into the other guy's hand, right? So muscle synergy is a big one, you guys. I think people that should spend a lot of time making sure that their movements are tight and that they're utilizing everything properly and not leaving out any big players as far as muscles go in the move that they could be doing, right? So muscle synergy, that's a big one. I definitely have that on the list at number 6. Number 5, table IQ. Now, when I'm talking about this one, don't even worry about the order I'm putting these in, guys. This is just the list, right? Just go over the list, and like I said, the order can be all skewed around. But next one I have is table IQ. Right now, table IQ in that category, that we have leverage, tricks that you're going to learn from experienced arm wrestlers and over time, angles like cutting into someone's angle, so it takes away some of their ability to apply power. And then also Devin brought up something called the OODA Loop. Which I'll get into in a minute. So as far as table IQ goes, how smart you are on the table can really lead to how much pressure you can apply in someone's hand. If you know what you're doing and you know the tricks you're using and what moves you're doing, you can consciously generate more power in someone's hand without physically being any stronger than the guy, right? So these are the tricks that people always refer to. Oh, arm wrestling's just a bunch of tricks. It's not a way you can beat me. It's not about strength. It's about tricks. So this refers to that. And yes, tricks and leverage and angles can definitely be a big player in how much force you apply into someone's hand. If you know what your angles are and the leverage you're using and you know how and why this is working, then you can definitely apply a lot more power. Arm wrestling is full of cheats, minor cheats, major cheats. That's just what it is. Devin's so intelligent when it comes to arm wrestling, especially like the dad move, haha. Yep, dad move's great, man. Focusing on that stuff and getting your table time in with an established team and with established pros can be huge, right? It can really lead to the amount a giant increase in the amount of pressure you can apply on a table. LeVon beats everyone using tricks. I don't know about tricks. LeVon's really strong. Sorry guys, this is part of being live. I'm excited to answer some of the questions and comments too. I shouldn't have to explain that too much, right? If I use a trick like I cover your thumb knuckle, then my leverage and my ability to crush your hand and your radial deviation is going to be significantly improved, right? So I applied more power via a trick. Or if there's a ton of them, right? Cutting across someone's angle with your shoulder. So say you're hooking with somebody and I'm worried about the side of my shoulder and the back of my hand cutting into the other person's bicep. That can significantly reduce the amount of power they can apply while increasing the amount of power I can apply because they'll be using just their bicep while I'm utilizing my chest, shoulder, potentially tricep, cupping, all that stuff, right? So table IQ is big, amplifies everything. Now the other thing Devin brought up, this is his what he wanted me to add under table IQ, is the OODA Loop. Now I spent a couple hours today after he mentioned that looking into it. I did not know what that was, and I was like, what is the OODA Loop? So it's used commonly in military, I found out, and which is kind of maybe why Devin knows about it, I'm not sure. But OODA, OODA, it stands for observe, orient, decide, and act, right? And then there's just a loop, how successful your OODA loop is. Oh, okay, there you go. Carlo probably knows about it. He's in the military. Um, and it made sense. The more I read into it, the OODA loop it's basically, it seems kind of common sense, right? Of course, I see something, I think about it, then I act, and then, yeah. But the more you break it down, the more you look into the OODA loop and what it is to observe something and the ways you can observe something efficiently and make sure you're taking it all in, ways you orient, you process something, right? About what's coming at you. So say on, I observe that this guy is grabbing me low on the wrist. Okay, I see that. Now I'm gonna, because I'm open, I'm not just caught up in the moment, I was able to observe that movement. Then the orient part would be, okay, he's grabbing me low because he's trying to crush my top roll and he's trying to turn me into a hook, right? And so I understand that, and so the best thing to do would be to attack his bottom two fingers. Say I decide I want a low hand top roll. Best thing to do would be attack his bottom two fingers. There's the orient part. Then there's the decide part. Okay, I've decided I'm going to low hand top roll him now. So then I would rise up and change my to a low hand top roll and put pressure on his bottom two fingers, and then act, and I would execute it. Now, the faster you can process these things and use your OODA loop, and the more efficient and better decision making you have within it, it can definitely lead to a lot of things, right? So the person with the more efficient, faster acting OODA loop can be way more successful on an arm wrestling table. And this is just me looking into it for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, guys. So I have a lot more research to do on this OODA loop thing. I'm really excited to look into it. But just off the top and off the few articles and stuff I read on it, it makes a lot of sense, right? So the faster you can process things in your head, the more efficient you can be on an arm wrestling table, which will allow you in turn, because you're moving more efficiently, to apply more pressure in the person's hand, right? So it has to do with that, right? Applying pressure. Now moving forward, next one we're gonna go over is speed, right? Speed is a big one. This is coming from a slow dude. Within speed, we'll talk about reaction time and simplifying movements. Now, what would you say the most important muscle to build? Oh, Tyler, that's a big question. I wonder how to counter press of a tall person. Found it hard last time I tried. Those are great, and I'll try to get to those guys in a little bit. This one isn't going to be as many questions. I kind of want to go over this, and then I'll hop into some questions afterwards. Now, these categories I'm reading to you guys, I'm trying to only read categories that are trainable. Right, so if there's some stuff in here, you're like, wait, he didn't mention this or he didn't mention that. It's because I feel like you can't really change that, right? I'm not going to talk about genetics, because you can't change your genetics, I guess, unless you're taking so much HGH that you just become a monster. But in general, you can't change like the size, the bone structure, as far and like hand size and things like that. So when it comes to things you can't really change, even though that stuff can help or help determine how much pressure you apply, then there's no point in really talking about it, because I'm trying to make a shopping list for people that want to train and become stronger. And so I'm giving you guys some categories to focus on so you can apply more power, right? So there's some things that are gonna be left out intentionally because you can't really affect that. Okay, so speed, reaction time, and simplifying your movements. Tyler, do you take any performance enhancing drugs? All of them, everything. So for speed, for simplifying your movements. Now, a shorter, more simple movement will always be faster, right, guys? So when you break down your movements, if you overthink things and you make it more complicated in your head, then it slows you down in all my experiences, right? So it's not that someone needs to be excessively fast when off the go, but if their movements are simplified, then you can take advantage of them like ASAP, right? So I've always been taught that power is speed plus strength equals power. That's what I've always been taught, and that's kind of what I believe, I guess. So if you're fast enough, the amount of power you can apply into someone's hand can be multiplied by a lot, right? Just it all depends on force and things like that, right? So working on your reaction time and simplifying your movements so you're able to be faster within an arm wrestling match can help increase a lot the amount of power you can put in someone's hand, right? And like I said, over all these categories, guys, over the next couple weeks, I'm gonna go over these and how I've been taught to improve on some of these things and how you can increase your chance of applying more pressure, right? That's what we wanna do. We wanna be able to apply more pressure into the guy's hand so we can win, right? That's like the goal of the whole thing. Next one is joint conditioning. let's see. So Tyler. Next one is joint conditioning. Under joint conditioning, we talk about bone density, calcification, scar tissue, things like that. Now, the reason I think this needs its own category is over time, when I started really focusing on my joints, specifically my elbow, but that's not even to mention your humerus and your other joints and stuff too, focusing on those and really getting those built can be a really big player. The fact that you see some established arm wrestlers getting in arm break positions intentionally, and they're able to apply a lot more pressure because of it is a big deal, right? New guys shouldn't be doing it because the established arm wrestlers have worked on their joint conditioning and their bone conditioning, so they're able to put more pressure with their bones into any kind of movement, right? So you'll see Devin get in a real big arm break position where his hand's going behind his shoulder, then his humerus can take that. Because over time, he's done it so many times that his humerus is dense and it's not gonna snap as easy as a new guy. So he's able to apply an extra 15 pounds of pressure, 20 pounds of pressure, whatever it is, out of just getting into a really arm breaky spot, but he can handle it. Same thing with your elbow. As I've, in my gym, my numbers have gone up on my style of hooking. I use bicep, of course, right? And shoulder and chest, because those are the things, the big players I see in my style of hooking as big muscle players. Now, the numbers I put up in my curls, bench, and front delt raises, my shoulder lifts, hasn't gone up a ton. It's not like landslide victory, but I put a lot of focus in on my joint conditioning. So I would grab have someone tie a rope around my hand with my palm facing me and have them pull straight sideways, right? So all the pressure would be right here in my elbow. Now I would have them do that a lot, and I would do a lot of that when I was on my own. Time to get on that arson stack. Holy shit, that dude was huge. So joint conditioning. But once I started, my right arm and my right elbow started really getting up to par, even though my numbers in the gym haven't gone way up and my biceps haven't gotten way bigger and everything hasn't gotten way bigger, the fact that my joints can support so much more pressure and they allow me to tap into all my big muscle groups even more at a higher percentage allows me to apply a lot more pressure on the table, right? Especially sideways. A lot of the joint conversations have to do with side pressure, because side pressure is the really joint heavy, like as in it leans on your joints a lot. It's a really joint heavy style, right, of arm wrestling, right? So that's why this is big for people trying to really consider hooking or going sideways a lot in their movements. But yeah, so you guys, focusing on your joints is going to be a big player, and it takes time. That takes years. That's why I start a lot of my new guys on my team with working on their joints from step one. It's painful, it sucks, but it's kind of a necessary evil if you want to take steps forward and kind of do any kind of inside move or sideways pressure. Once my right elbow got up to par, I feel like I'm not afraid of it anymore, and I can rely on my joint, and it's a whole different ballgame, guys. Once you get your joints caught up, I really think that separates a lot of the big names with the newer guys, right? So always think about your joints and how much pressure you're able to apply. What's up, ET? So moving on, we got two more. Next one's gonna be connective tissue, right? So connective tissue, we're gonna talk about tendons and ligaments. Tendons are what connects your muscle to bone. Ligaments is bone to bone, right? So strengthening your tendons and your ligaments can be a really big player. Now, the reason that I didn't put joint conditioning and tendons and ligaments together is because tendons and ligaments are bigger players in different movements, right? So your bicep tendons and your tendons all in your chest and stuff like that that connect to your shoulder. You have tendons all over the place, and those are really big players in a lot more movements. So when you see a lot of the older guys that have been arm wrestling a long time, they have really skinny arms, not a ton of muscle mass, and they have crazy strong tendons, those can be extremely big players, right? That's something that should be focused on. I'm not saying it needs to be focused on completely separate from muscles, but tendons are definitely tendons and ligaments and connective tissue in general needs to be focused on and treated differently, right? So you rehab your tendons and ligaments differently, and you need to focus on them a little bit, especially as far as recovery, right? So forcing blood to your tendons and ligaments and things like that to help them grow and make sure they're getting adequate recovery, which most people don't, because they recover differently than muscles because they don't receive blood the same way muscles do, right? So last thing, is just gonna be muscle fiber, guys. The last thing that, in my opinion, that contributes to force applied on an arm wrestling table is gonna be muscle fiber. Now, this is the most common one that everybody goes to, and it's probably the number one thing. If depending on your weight class is big, right? So Alan Fisher can't put on a ton of muscle and stay at 165. Not a ton, right? Because muscle's heavy. So generally, super heavyweights, clasp on to this muscle fiber concept, and that's all they do. I want to get strong on the arm wrestling table, let me get bigger muscles, right? That's it, hand in hand. And will that work? Of course. I mean, look at Denis Saplenkov. Not saying he doesn't have other things going for him, but I'm saying that if you just stack on a ton of muscle, and this is where people start talking about steroids and whatnot, because really out of almost all this, besides energy and muscle fiber, that's the only things that I would say steroids directly affects. It's not going to make you use better muscle synergy. It's not going to make you use more muscles. Table IQ, that's not going to help you with that. Speed, I guess it can help you with speed. Joint conditioning, no, it won't help you with that. Connective tissue, definitely not going to help you with that, right? So, so steroids would contribute to muscle fiber and energy. So that's why I'm not really talking about it, because steroids in and of themselves don't contribute directly to force applied. They contribute to these categories, some of them which can attribute to force applied, right? So I'm not going to get into that. But muscle fiber, right? So you put on muscle, you're going to get bigger. And so guys in weight classes, this is another reason I wanted to make this list. If you are not a super heavyweight and you have to worry about a weight class, then you can't just keep stacking on muscle forever. You're going to keep getting heavier. You know what I mean? You can't just eat, 15 pounds of meat every day and just keep getting, you're going to join my weight class really soon, but you're going to have that tiny little hand that you were born with inside a super heavyweight class, right? So you guys, that's why I wanted to give you guys other options besides muscle fiber. Now, within this topic of muscle fiber, one thing that I think Todd Hutchings wanted me to bring up was endurance, right? I wanted to put it underneath the category of muscle fiber because endurance is, how well you get oxygen to your muscles, and so that goes a lot with like how in shape you are. For all of us fat pieces of crap who can't breathe on an arm wrestling table, our endurance is shit, right? Especially the more muscles you have, the more oxygen it requires to keep them up. So the more muscles you do, or the more muscles you have, the harder it is to keep the endurance boat floating, right? So focus on, you have to have a certain level of endurance. You need to be in shape, especially if you're trying to be an athlete. You know what I mean? We can't be completely out of shape and expect your endurance to be at any significant level unless your arm doesn't go straight. Then you wouldn't need as much muscle endurance. So that's what I was talking about as far as muscle fibers and endurance goes. Also, the reason we wanted to kind of throw endurance in here, I mean, I know it doesn't directly at the very beginning of a match. Endurance doesn't play a big role in applying force at the very beginning. Endurance comes in about halfway through. So I'd say that that you need to focus on, but halfway through, endurance is the biggest player, right? One of the biggest things, like when I pulled Devin a lot, is that he's crazy strong up front. And this is just in training, right? He's crazy strong up front. But about like a minute in, you're like, wow, he's getting so much stronger. Somehow he's still getting stronger. It's not that he's getting stronger, it's that you're getting weaker, and he's just not, right? His endurance is insane. So endurance can come from just being in good shape and getting processing oxygen to your muscles really well. But endurance can also come from table IQ, leverage, and tricks like that, like using certain muscles for a little while, keeping me on one muscle while you're using a certain set of muscles, then switching and giving those other muscles a break, so that way you can keep alternating muscles and keeping them fresh while I'm on one muscle the entire time. So, I guess the King's move does need endurance in the hand. I was just joking about that, man. Endurance can be looked at as far as its angles and table IQ goes, but also as far as your muscle fibers and stuff like that. Okay, so that is the list of all 7. For those of you guys that tuned in real quick, muscle fibers, connective tissue, joint conditioning, speed, table IQ, muscle synergy, and energy that you bring to the table, right? Through various means, how much energy you can get hyped up at the table. Now, well, I guess we'll get into some questions because you guys keep talking crap. Most of the people in my chat here are my team. I can see that. And let's see. So, oh man, I scroll up here. Tyler, I don't know if you're still watching video. Okay, Tyler asked a question up here. It said, what would you say is the most important? Dude, it totally depends on how you're built. Like, you know, if you have no bicep, then go build a bicep, man. So yeah, I mean, that depends on the person, man. You can, arm wrestling is a lot of, like rise, cup, and pull, rise, cup, and rotate. So you could say that, I guess. So, brachialis, man, go. That's the most important one. I just can't narrow it down. Oops, sorry. I can't narrow it down quite like that, because it's such a complicated thing. Damn. Sorry. Ugh. But what else did he ask? What'd you say? Support muscle build. Wonder how to counter press of tall person. Found it hard last time I tried. Yeah, so tall guy presses can be crazy, right? I've lost to guys that when I went to WAF, I lost to a lot of pressers, guys that are really tall, and I'm tall myself because someone that's really big can get over the table so quickly that they can get on top of their arm and really apply a lot of down pressure. So tall guy presses are definitely something to focus on. Sorry, hold on. I'm trying to set this up. The camera keeps moving. Sorry, guys. Ah. Okay. Yeah. So tall guy presses. It's gonna come down to how fast you can move at the center of the table. Damn it! My camera keeps messing up. This is what I get for my my tripod broke the other day, so I'm tripodless right now. Yeah, so it's center of the table. Sorry, presses. We're on topic presses. So it's what you do at the center of the table. When you have someone really threatening a heavy press, the first thing you do is the most important thing you do. If you let them get whatsoever any kind of movement or into their zone at all, then their press is going to be a million times more effective. So you have to make your decision and make whatever you're going to do. It has to be at the very beginning. And so controlling center table in the setup is huge for countering a press. Right? If you let someone that's pressing control center table at the beginning before they say go, you let them get their shoulder behind it, you let them really start threatening, then stopping their press is just a bitch, right? So that's why when Devin talks about crack all the time, he goes, crack, I'm gonna crack you. Then what he's saying is, I wanna test my frame against your frame. So when he was going against Jerry and he kept saying crack, what he talked about was, Jerry comes in with his shoulder. Jerry presses, right? So Jerry threatens center table with his shoulder a lot, and everybody's afraid of Jerry's shoulder, so they always try to run. They try to top roll him or whatever. And Devin made the decision that he's going to come at him as well. He's going to go shoulder forward against Jerry's shoulder forward, and we'll see whose frame cracks, because it's a super dangerous thing when two pressers really meet, because they're both coming forward and inside, so things can break and crack. So Devin said, crack. Like, let's see whose frame breaks, whose arm snaps in half, because I'm going to come forward with you, right? Okay, so there you go. Talking about pressing. Sorry, guys. I'm scrolling. Do you take any performance enhancing drugs? Dude, I just ate so much chicken like 20 minutes ago. Okay, why aren't you on the sauce, man? Jesus. How old am I? I am 34 years old. Right? Old and beat up. Chris Green, everybody's talking on here. Sorry. Everybody's talking crap to each other, ET and all them. Yeah, the King's move definitely still uses endurance. Is definitely, for sure. Do you think there's pronation locks in King's move or just pronation endurance? I think I went over my last one. The pronation in a King's move is a frame type of pronation. So you pronate with your shoulder, right? So instead of using flexion and like a concentric, like dynamic movement, the pronation that comes from the King's move is from your shoulder and through your humerus, right? So they more of a static hold and drop, right? So it's a different type of pronation. It's a very American style pronation. The King's move pronation is. There's a lot of people that pronate like that though. Okay, so moving on. Healing. What about healing, Leo? Like how to heal? Then you know, that active rehab is what I promote, and then on top of, you know, diet and sleep and ice and heat if you're into that, or if you have someone available like we have. Oh, healing as a category? No, I don't have healing as a category out of the 7 because this is just force applied on an actual table, and healing doesn't directly help me in that moment, right? In the moment on the table. It doesn't make my hand any stronger. It contributes to these things, but it doesn't directly help me apply more force. Everything on here will directly help me apply more force on an arm wrestling table in a match. When I'm thinking what went wrong, I can look at these categories and figure out where I was slacking, right? So some of these like can be more important than the other ones, right? So if I'm like a level 10 in muscle fiber, but a level, you know, 1 in table IQ, then that's something I might want to work on, right? And start moving these forward. Okay. But yeah, so these lists, I think that they're not all equal, right? But I think they're all big players. So I might try to take a little bit of time and like give them like a point system. And so like, you know, which ones can apply more. But like I said before, like Rob Vigent said, these are different for everybody. Some people are big on power, which is strength plus speed. Some people are big on static strength, which is like isometric holds. And then some people are more big on like concentric flexion and like dynamic movements. And if, depending on where you're at in those, you might completely have a different view on these and which ones are more important, right? So we're not all on the same page on everything, right? But I do think these are all the categories to apply pressure on an arm wrestling table in the moment, right? I'm pretty confident. I can't think of anything else. So that's really a big player that we can train, right? Okay, sorry, there's more questions coming in. Oh, man. What the flip? Yo, sorry, I don't know what just happened. It just disconnected for some reason. Sorry. So someone said, how important is rising to me? Specifically wrist rise. So yeah, that depends on your style of arm wrestling, man. If your style of arm wrestling is a completely wrist rise dependent style of arm wrestling, like you are a high knuckled top roller, then rising is gonna be super important to you, right? Well, in the straps, I think rising is pretty big. So I think that if you don't have it, it can really screw you. But it's also, so it's something I train for sure, but it's not something I double down on as much as I used to. When I first started arm wrestling, rising was everything. Man, if I cover his knuckle, I'll topple his hand every single time. But a lot of you guys that know me know that if you're always trying to find points of leverage, then I feel, since I did that for years, I feel like that was me running a lot. And so I don't like running from people anymore. So I'm becoming more of a grab you by the wrist and turn you in mindset type of guy. Like that's what I want to be, and that's what I'm trying to work towards. So yeah, rising just depends on the person, man. Depends on what styles you're going towards. So yeah, but it's definitely one of the players. It's something I train every day for sure. It's something I definitely train. How strong do you think Magnus Samuelsson was by curling 140 kg? That's just insane. Yeah, that's insane. The dude is crazy strong in his biceps. But like I said, there's 7 categories of applied strength on an arm wrestling table. And your biceps would be muscle fiber, connective tissue. That's it, right? So there's a lot of other ways to apply pressure on an arm wrestling table besides those. How important in the grand scheme of everything would you say bicep strength is? Would you rate it higher than your chest and shoulder? Like Chris, I mean, like I said, it all depends on your style, man. If you have a style that uses heavy chest and shoulder, then I would prioritize that, heavy chest and shoulder. If you're doing a style of arm wrestling which is all hand dependent, then flying backwards and using your rear delt and your brachialis and not as much chest and shoulder could be more important to you, right? So you can be focusing on radial deviation, using your radial brachialis and your brachialis and really posting really hard, and that might be your top priority, right? But if your style is like a really deep inside hook, then yeah, maybe your chest and shoulder are big players. But at the same time, when we're talking about your chest and shoulder, how big of players do you want your chest and shoulder to be if your joint, your elbow joint, isn't built up to handle the muscles you're about to build in your chest and shoulder, right? I went over this a little bit last time. If my joints are like so built up from me working on them for years, and I arm wrestle a guy who has way bigger, he can bench press twice what I can bench press and shoulder press twice what I can shoulder press, but my elbows are way built up, so my joints, my elbow joint, because the power has to go from my chest through my arm and through my elbow joint at some point to get to my hand. If my elbow joint allows me to access way more of my chest and shoulder than a normal guy, because it should, because it's conditioned, because I've been working on it, then I can get a way higher percentage of power to my hand, so I can use my chest and shoulder more than that guy who has that crazy bench press and crazy overhead press, right? So that's what I'm talking about when considering these categories, man. It's just got to be like, okay, I got a good bench and I got a good shoulder press, so I got the muscle there. The muscle fiber is there, right? Why is it not transitioning over to the table? Why am I not feeling more power from my chest and my shoulder? Well, it's probably because your joints are limiting that, or other muscles are limiting that, or one of these things, these 7 things, is limiting you from utilizing your big chest or shoulder, right? So yeah, I think those muscles do certain moves and help you out with a lot of stuff, but it's yeah, I mean, if chest and shoulder were the biggest player, then you'd see a ton of people bench pressing, arm wrestlers, and shoulder pressing. But I think the joints and working on your tendons and stuff like that can be a bigger player. Now bicep, like I said, I hook, so bicep is really important to me. So I do a lot of bicep curls and static holds and things like that, but I also acknowledge that there's a lot of other players in a hook besides a bicep that can contribute. But yeah, having an amazing bicep, an amazingly strong one, is definitely awesome. Can help out a ton. And so can a chest and whatever, right? Yeah, so there's, hopefully that answers that. Got disconnected for a second again, guys. Sorry, I can't control this. Next question I saw was, thanks for making this list, Derek. I'm interested to know what, if any, challenges you have with shorter arm wrestlers. I'm wondering if you ever run into short guys who hook and stuff, right? And pin you like Babayev. Yeah, right. Obviously, I have a really long arm. I'm 6'8", so my whole life is based around arm wrestling shorter arm wrestlers for the most part. So the thing about having a long arm is it gives you options. You can go other places on an arm wrestling table that shorter arm guys cannot, right? So when you're thinking about, when I'm approaching arm wrestling a shorter guy, I think about taking them places that they can't go. Now that's in any move, right? Whether they're hooking or even if they're top rolling or whatever, I have some options that they don't. So I keep that in mind at all times, right? As long as I have my angles covered, I can take them up, right? And I can go so high up that they can't stay up. Then once I get them to their limit, now they're focused on holding me down, and now I'm dictating the match because I'm controlling the height. So even in a hook, you can hook up, right? Or in top roll, you can just post straight up. That's a big one. Also, if you make it more important to stay tight as a tall guy, I think that's a really big player, right? So when they start connecting you, or when they start connecting themselves and disconnecting you, pulling you across the table, then you making sure that you stay tight with your bicep and keep all your angles tight, your angle from your shoulder to your arm, keep that tight at all times. You can stay tight all the way across the table and be in good position farther. Yeah, so I think about where you can take them that they can't survive, and then focus on staying tight. I think those are the big things that you need to focus on when arm wrestling a shorter guy. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's other stuff. I think the other stuff is standard arm wrestling thoughts, but when specifically as a tall guy arm wrestling a shorter guy, think about how to take them when they can't go, and utilizing your options, making sure you maintain your options. Let's see. It's like every time I try to click on the chat and start using the chat, and hopefully you guys got a lot out of this. Keep disconnecting. I'm gonna get off, guys. I appreciate you guys all tuning in. Message me if you guys ever have any questions at all. Of course, I'll answer them. If I can help anybody at all ever in arm wrestling and help you guys spread the word and help this awesome sport that we've all dedicated our lives to, then I'm all game. All right, just message me on anything. Find me on Reddit, Discord, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Yeah, guys. So sorry, it just keeps disconnecting. It's going to be a pain to watch this for everybody else. So I'll get to more of your guys' questions if you guys are, like I said, just message me. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully everybody's training hard out here. This coronavirus stuff's almost over. There's a lot of other stuff going on. I'm not even going to touch on that. And hopefully everybody's staying safe and doing what they can to keep moving forward. And yeah. All right, guys. I will talk to you later. All right. Bye.